Today we have with us Jean-Philippe Chetcuti, who is a lawyer specialising in European residency and citizenship law as well as tax planning. He's been instrumental not only in introducing these laws but also developing them, and he's been advising families and investors about these programmes not only in Malta but also in Cyprus. Today we're going to be discussing the Malta Residency by Investment Programme, which I understand is also known as the golden visa problem. That implies that it's a very popular programme. Nothing is gold unless it's worthwhile. Perhaps you can explain to us what the benefits are.
Yes, so the gold is in the visa granting the holder access to the Schengen Area. So not only does a family obtain residency, permanent residency for life in Malta, but thanks to that, Malta being part of the Schengen Area since 2007, that enables families to literally visit any of the 26 Schengen countries without requiring another visa, actually simply by presenting the residency card.
Okay, that's clearly very good. Is it something which is actually difficult to get?
No, well, the processing time is quite a fast turnaround. We're looking at about 3 to 4 months. Usually within 3 months, one already receives a certificate of permanent residency. In terms of eligibility, we're looking at least an investment in government bonds of 250,000 euros. On the strength of keeping these bonds for 5 years, the government is able to issue permanent residency at the outset. The bond option has an alternative to it, which is based on an annuity of 15,000 euros. This is only payable for the first 5 years, so a total of 75,000 euros. And it grants the same rights as the first option.
You mentioned the fact that you have to invest in Malta, but is that a good option for people, or is it just money they're parting with?
Well,
is the
first
island
of all,
quite stable?
Yes, it is an investment program to start with, and it is a bond investment program, and therefore, yes, the question of Malta's credit rating is quite an important one, as well as that of the rating of the bonds themselves. So the bonds themselves are secured government bonds. The law requires the bonds to be non-interest yielding, but as it stands now, since there are no zero coupon bonds available, the government is allowing investment in bonds with a coupon, with an interest rate, so that is good for the investor. The bonds themselves, as I said, are secured and they're very popular in that even the local market literally grabs them within hours, if not minutes, of their first issue. We have regular issues, however, we find it easier to, rather than waiting for a fresh issue, to actually invest in a fund that then invests exclusively in government bonds. So in reality, it's very easy to either invest, both to invest into the bonds, but also to exit, to sell them. You don't need to invest directly in the bonds themselves. However, the alternative option is equally attractive, where people don't want to tie up 250,000 euros in government bonds and would rather pay an annuity of 15,000 euros. At the end, the benefit of this bond program is that it is not just an investment opportunity, but mainly an instrument that gives you the ability to start a life in Malta, with the ability even to work in Malta and do business, educate one's children and so on. And thanks to that permanent residency in Malta, then also to travel across the Schengen area. The program covers the whole family, so the main applicant doesn't need to invest or pay additional sums by virtue of having a bigger family. So whether it's a small family or a big family, this all comes under the main investment.
You mentioned the fact that they live in Malta. Are they obliged to buy property here?
That's right. So in terms of covering all the requirements, besides the bond investment, one does have to have what one has when he receives a resident status. So one must have a residential address. It can either be owned or rented. The program itself establishes a minimum rent or a minimum purchase price for at least those 5 years, the initial 5 years. After 5 years, there is no obligation to buy or rent or hold property at any minimum, although one would be expected to have a residence available to the family for as long as they want to retain their residence permit thereafter.
Going off our experience, anyone who's here for 5 years falls in love with the island so much they usually decide to stay anyway.
In fact, we find that applicants often ask us, what the minimum stay is. There is no minimum stay requirement, so before the client comes to Malta, often the comfort is that they are going to enjoy Schengen residency without having to spend any time in Malta. But because the program requires at least one visit, at least at the point of collecting your residence cards, you need to have your biometrics taken. Often that is an opportunity for our clients to discover Malta, and more often than not, clients find that Malta is either a very safe place for the family to be based, or else at least it is a second home destination where they can invest in a second home, a holiday home, or possibly do business, set up a company, or establish some sort of base.
What is the situation with regards to tax in Malta? Does it work? Are there advantages associated with that as well?
Well, traditionally Malta has positioned itself as a favourable tax jurisdiction without the connotations of offshore tax havens. So Malta has been clever in terms of remaining compliant with its European obligations as a European Union member, whilst at the same time remaining very competitive both in its personal and its corporate tax rates. Not to mention business taxation, which can range from 0 to 5% for internationally owned companies. On a personal level, we do not charge tax on a worldwide basis. So Malta taxes a foreigner who is resident in Malta only on that foreign income that is received in Malta. So with some careful planning, if a foreigner is coming to Malta and is living off their savings, their capital, they would not be incurring any additional taxes. If one is not resident for tax purposes by virtue of spending 183 days, but is simply holding residency for immigration purposes, that would mean that they are enjoying Schengen residency without the additional burden of tax residency. And this would apply equally to foreigners and locals. So if I were to not be resident here, notwithstanding that I'm a citizen of Malta, I would be taxed differently, and I would clearly not be taxed on the same basis as someone who is resident in Malta.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chetcuti. I'm sure that you found that extremely interesting. Of course, there's so much that you actually have to absorb. There's plenty more information available on the website, and of course, you can call and ask for any other information. Thank you.
You're welcome.